His own snake, driving Carroll Shelby's personal 289 Cobra, the last one ever built. There's something a little surreal about sliding into the driver's seat of a Shelby Cobra. It's not just a rarity. Only 655 289 Cobras were ever made. It's the story each one tells. But the Cobra I'm sitting in today? This one's on a whole different level. I'm in CSX 2589, the last 289 Cobra to ever roll off the line before Shelby made the switch to the brutish 427s. And yeah, this one belonged to Carroll Shelby himself. Yep, the Carroll Shelby. This was his personal car, the one he owned from day one, the one he had tweaked and retweaked over decades. And sitting in it, looking at that tall automatic shifter poking out from the tunnel, you can't help but smile. That's right, this Cobra has an automatic. Wait, what? A Cobra with an automatic? That's usually the first thing that makes people do a double take. You're expecting a racy 4-speed with a clutch that makes your left leg cry. But instead, you get a C4 slush box, Ford's lightweight, 3-speed automatic introduced in 1964. Now, before you panic and scream, "Sacrilege!" It's worth knowing this, it wasn't that uncommon. Depending on who you ask, Shelby built 16 to 20 Cobras with automatics straight from the factory. They were built with intention, not as afterthoughts. For the Cobra, they used a heavy-duty version of that same C4 transmission that was found in the 65 Fairlane. In fact, this specific setup didn't even make it into the Mustang until a year later. But here's the kicker, the automatic transmission required 6-bolt bell housings, which meant the engine blocks themselves were different from the 5-bolt ones in manual Cobras. That's a small but critical detail when talking originality. Oh, and because of the auto, these Cobras also got a special Autolite carburetor with an automatic choke. Manuals? They had to make do with manual chokes. Fancy. A bit of birth certificate. CSX 2589 left AC Cars Ltd. In the UK and landed at Shelby American's LA shop in late October 1964, painted a beautiful iris rouge, think metallic maroon, with a black interior. It came straight from the crate with the 6-bolt 289 and C4 automatic, and immediately went into service as a company demo car. Throughout late 64 and into 65, it was used to show off to journalists, potential buyers, and important guests. It racked up about 1,400 miles before Shelby decided to make it his own in May 1966. That's right, he never even registered it until he bought it personally. Talk about having the pick of the litter. Let's fire her up. With a splash of premium fuel in the tank, we flicked on the dash-mounted fuel pump switch, stomped the gas pedal, and gave the key a twist. Rumble. She fired up like she meant it. A lumpy, growly 2,500 RPM idle echoed through the fairgrounds. That sound alone made the hair on our arms stand up. Pulling the automatic shifter into drive, still weird, the car gave a hard lurch, chirping the tires like an annoyed snake. The steering felt heavy at first, then lightened up once we hit 20 miles per hour. Around that point, the C4 auto clunked into second gear with another bark from the rear. No clutch stabbing here, this car just goes. Compared to modern Cobras with 5 speeds and upgraded suspension, this one felt a bit like a cruiser. But still quick. Still sharp. Still very much a Cobra. It just doesn't ask as much of you. So, why an automatic? It's the question that always comes up. Why would Carroll Shelby choose an automatic? McCluskey has a theory. He always liked automatics. People forget that. He built a few 427s that way too. I think he was ahead of his time in that sense. And really, if it's good enough for Shelby, it's good enough for us. Final thoughts. Driving CSX 2589 wasn't just a test drive, it was time travel. This car has lived through every chapter of Cobra history. It was the last of its kind, it spent decades with the man who made it a legend, and somehow, it survived wild engine swaps, paint jobs, and the temptation of modern restoration trends. It's still raw. Still loud. Still a little weird. and still perfect in its imperfection. This is Carroll Shelby's Cobra, and it's exactly what he wanted it to be. Enter McCluskey, the Cobra Whisperer. Let's fast forward to the early 70s. Mike McCluskey, a young gearhead working on his Sunbeam Alpine, happened to live near Shelby in Playa del Rey, California. They became friendly neighbors, and Shelby, being impressed with McCluskey's work, casually asked, "Hey kid, want to work on my Cobra?" That project turned into a big refresh for CSX 2589. Out went the 289, and in went a 351 Cleveland, a big, heavy cast-iron beast. Shelby was experimenting with wheel production at the time, so on went some new knockoff rims. As for paint, Shelby's exact words were, "Paint it blue. Do whatever you want." So, McCluskey chose a Targa blue, a Corvette color, and added gold center stripes, a hood scoop, a full-width roll bar, and a freshened black interior. The car became flashier, heavier, and definitely more aggressive looking. It was just a pig. The 351 swap sounded great in theory, but in practice? Not so much. He didn't like the engine, McCluskey said. It was just a pig, too much weight, too much heat. Shelby drove the car that way for about a decade, but it never felt quite right. Eventually, in the early 80s, he came back to McCluskey with a new plan: return it to stock. By now, Cobras had become serious collector items, and originality was suddenly important. Lucky for everyone, McCluskey had saved the original 289 from the scrap heap. He pulled it from storage, rebuilt it, and swapped it back in. The roll bar was removed. The original wire wheels went back on. The only thing that stayed? That blue and gold paint job. McCluskey wanted to return it to Iris Rouge, but Shelby waved him off. "Nah, leave it. I like it this way." Not quite a daily driver. Since then, CSX 2589 has mostly been sitting pretty. It's been on display at Shelby American's Las Vegas HQ, doing more looking good than tearing up tarmac. Shelby himself rarely drove it in later years. He just didn't fit in it comfortably, McCluskey said with a chuckle. He preferred Mustangs or even some of the Mopar stuff. Still, this was his car. The dash plaques say it. The restoration work shows it. The vibe feels it. Behind the wheel, finally. So here we are, decades later, and we finally got the green light to drive CSX 2589. Not on public roads, mind you. This is a multi-million-dollar piece of history. Instead, we headed to Auto Club Raceway in Pomona, where early Cobras had once roared through SCCA events in the 60s. At first glance, the Cobra looked tired in the dim light. But once it rolled off the trailer and hit the sun, that paint popped. Blue and gold never looked so good. The interior was just how you'd want it, clean, aged, full of character. The wood steering wheel had a soft, worn-in look. The gauges, Smiths for the Tatch and Speedo, Stuart Warner for the rest, were all intact. A small crack in the driver's side windwing. Some faded bright work. But overall, incredible shape for a car with this much history.